Week 12, NET-136 OS2, and this would be the beginning of week 411. We talked about smartphones, or any smart device, 60 minutes at a segment this week, dealing with 3 different approaches to how software is designed on smartphones to keep you coming back to the phone, and actually the phone, you end up being a product for the companies that supply the phone so that they can sell you to their advertisers. Alright, network file systems. We talked about, systems stored on tape. We talked about floppy drives, USB drives. We talked about hard drives and how years ago they used to download and try to sync with your hard drive to your device. Now we have a much better way to do it as far as storing in the cloud, if you feel comfortable with storing information in the cloud. We have network file systems, and we listed a couple different types of files. ext4, Linux, NTFS, that's a Windows file system, Microsoft, and then we listed some other ones and talked a little bit about them. Talked about the name and putting the information and storing it out on the hard drive. The next thing we talked about was Apache web server, and how it depends on how you install this, but most of them allow you to have a public HTML directory that then the users can have web pages, but you have to go in here and go into this file, and it'll have the user directory commented out that you want to use, and so you need to adjust that file. A lot of people, you need to update. A lot of people make a backup of the file and then adjust it so that the users, if they have an index file, then in their public HTML file you can access that with the tilde and then the user's name behind the domain name or host name or address of where the server is. We talked a little bit about context, change context. You'll need to do this every time you add a new user, and you'll also have to check the permissions to make sure people have read and execute permission on the directories that they need to access if you're going to allow people to access web pages. We reviewed briefly what each of the chapters did, and we talked about some of the key things in there. We talked about scripting, hardware, managing packages. We did at least 2 installs, maybe 3. Network configuration, we went back and looked again at setting a static IPs and so forth, and making sure we had a default gateway and that our servers were accessible externally in terms of to our internal network. We don't have any IP addresses, so they can be accessed outside of our local network, but they can be accessed within our network. Reviewed security, passwords, permissions, so forth. Limits, we talked about those. The students have done quite a bit of work with creating users and groups, ownerships and permissions, how to change a group, change the owner, and adjust a number of things here. Special permissions, links to file locations, and so forth. So that was, we talked about users, login procedures, install, document, and some students have scripts for creating new users. Graphical user interface basics. We reviewed about productivity software, open source, some of the things you could do, GIMP, Office, and then manage users, permissions, and groups. command line. You should be able to manage file management. We talked a lot about paths. We reviewed scripts, system at boot. We went through multi-user, graphical user, single user. We reviewed this information, and we talked about how to change that. We talked about the servers do not have any GUI at all, and we talked about some of the rhyme or reason why you might want to have a GUI available on a server. Automating tasks. We reviewed Cron tab, and we did the @ command. Then we talked about backup and restore. Review. So, some of the things: install, security, setup, PHP, access the data. So we reviewed web page, we reviewed installing MySQL, make sure. Then we talked about user directories, make sure the permissions are correct. Restore context, and then the command you need every time you add a new user. You can do that for all users. Change the context, recursive. We use this command for the HTML, and then we apply it to everything on the home directories. And this was a reminder, the final was Tuesday. I have all the chapters, exams complete. And that's it.